In the serene city of Rajagaha, nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas, Buddha sat under a large tree, surrounded by a group of curious disciples. His teachings had spread far and wide, but today, a visitor from a distant land approached with a burning question. The man, wearing the robes of a spiritual seeker, knelt before Buddha and asked, "O enlightened one, I have traveled far from lands where gods are worshipped. Many people say you do not believe in a god. How can this be? Do you not believe in a supreme being who created the universe and governs all life?" Buddha, calm and composed, gazed at the man with gentle compassion and replied, "Friend, I understand the longing behind your question, for it is a question many have asked. But instead of giving you a simple answer, let me share a story." The man nodded eagerly, ready to listen. Buddha began. Once, a man was struck by a poisoned arrow. His friends and family rushed to help him, but instead of letting them remove the arrow, he said, "Wait, before you pull it out, I must know who shot this arrow. What was the man's caste? What village did he come from, and why did he shoot me? What was the material of the bow he used?" Buddha paused, allowing the story to settle in. Now, if the man kept asking these questions, what do you think would happen to him? The visitor thought for a moment and responded, "He would die from the poison before his questions were answered." Buddha smiled gently. Exactly. The man's need to know who shot the arrow distracted him from the immediate reality, that his life was in danger, and that action was required to remove the arrow and heal the wound. In the same way, many people are struck by the poisoned arrow of suffering, but instead of addressing the root causes of their suffering, they spend their time asking who created the world, whether there is a God, and what that God's nature might be. The visitor listened carefully as Buddha continued, "My teachings are not concerned with whether there is a God who created the universe. I do not say there is a God, and I do not say there is no God. What I teach is how to relieve the suffering that all beings experience here and now. My focus is on understanding the nature of the mind, the causes of suffering, and the path to liberation." One of Buddha's disciples, who had also been pondering this question, spoke up, "But Master, many people believe that a God controls their fate and that salvation comes from worshipping this God. How can we guide them if we do not teach them to seek the help of a higher power?" Buddha turned to the disciple with a compassionate gaze and replied, "Do you remember the story I once told of the blind men and the elephant?" The disciple nodded. 5 blind men were led to an elephant. Each touched a different part of the elephant's body. One touched the trunk, another the tail, another the leg, and so on. Each of them described the elephant differently based on what they felt. One said, "The elephant was like a snake," another said it was like a tree, and yet another said it was like a rope. But none of them saw the whole elephant. Similarly, those who speak of gods are like these blind men. They are describing a small part of reality based on their limited understanding. Buddha paused to let his words sink in before continuing, "The truth is far deeper than any belief in a god or gods. What I teach is that suffering comes from ignorance, attachment, and desire. Whether or not there is a God, these are the forces that bind us to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And it is within our power to overcome them, not through worship or relying on external forces, but through our own actions, wisdom, and understanding." The visitor, still intrigued, asked, "But Master, if there is no God to guide us or to offer salvation, how can we find meaning in life? How can we know what is right or wrong?" Buddha's voice was soft but clear. Meaning is not given by a god or any external being. It is found within. We must rely on our own mindfulness, our own compassion, and our own wisdom. The path to true freedom and happiness is not through blind belief or devotion to a god, but through understanding the nature of reality. The Eightfold Path, which I teach, provides guidance on how to live a life of virtue, wisdom, and mindfulness. This is how we find peace, not by relying on others, but by transforming ourselves. Buddha gestured to the vast sky above. The universe is immense, and its origins are beyond what we can know. But what is important is how we live in this moment, here and now. Whether there is a God or not does not change the fact that we suffer because of our desires, our attachments, and our ignorance. To overcome this suffering, we must look inward and free ourselves from these chains. The visitor, after a moment of contemplation, bowed before Buddha and said, "Master, your words have opened my eyes. I now understand that the search for a God will not end my suffering. Instead, I will follow your teachings to seek peace within myself." Buddha smiled warmly and replied, "The answers you seek are not found outside, but within. Walk the path with mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, and you will find true liberation." With that, the Buddha rose and walked toward the forest, leaving the visitor and his disciples with a profound understanding that the path to enlightenment lay not in the belief in a God, but in the realization of one's own power to transform suffering into peace. The teaching of Buddha was not about denying the existence of a God, but about focusing on what truly matters, liberating oneself from suffering through wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Whether there is a God or not is a question that does not remove the poisoned arrow of suffering. It is through inner work that true peace can be found.